Think about something as simple as a door. When it's designed well, you just walk through it. You don't even think. But a poorly designed door, well, that's just frustrating, right? Good digital design is exactly like that perfect door. It's so smooth, so seamless, it's basically invisible. But underneath that simple feeling, there's a whole set of powerful hidden roles. And today, we're going to uncover them. And that really gets to the core of it, doesn't it? Why does the best design feel like it's not even there? Well, it's because it's built on a really deep understanding of how our brains are wired. So today, we are pulling back the curtain on the 12 psychological laws that make all of that magic happen. All right, to break this all down, we've grouped these 12 laws into 4 big themes. First up, we'll talk about what we see, the laws of visual perception. Then we'll get into user efficiency, mental simplicity, and finally, we'll touch on the psychology of what actually motivates us to get things done. Okay, let's start with our eyes. This first set of laws is all about how we process everything we see on a screen. And it really explains why a beautiful interface isn't just, window dressing. It's actually a crucial part of making something work well. Okay, imagine this. I offer you 2 glasses of lemonade. One is in this gorgeous glass with a sprig of mint and a perfect lemon slice. The other is in a plain old plastic cup. Which one do you think is going to taste better? Yeah, probably the first one. That is the aesthetic-usability effect in a nutshell. We're just hardwired to believe that things that look better work better. It's why we're so drawn to the beautiful design of Apple products or the clean look of Spotify. That beauty actually makes us feel like they're more functional. Now, this one is super simple, but it's incredibly powerful. Our brains are pattern-matching machines, so we automatically group things that look alike. Think about filling out a form on Amazon. All the boxes you type in look the same, right? And all the buttons you can click share the same color and shape. That's no accident. That's the law of similarity telling your brain, hey, all these things do the same kind of job, so you don't even have to think about it. This is sometimes called the isolation effect, but I like to think of it as the purple cow principle, right? If you see a field full of black and white cows and there's one purple one, well, where's your eye gonna go? Designers use this trick all the time. You're on a website looking at pricing plans, and one of them is always highlighted or bigger or a different color. That is the von Restorff effect, grabbing your attention and nudging you toward the most popular choice. Our brains are kind of lazy, but in a really efficient way. They just don't want to work any harder than they have to. So the law of Prägnanz basically says that when we look at something complex, our brain instinctively simplifies it into the easiest shape possible. The absolute masterclass in this, an IKEA instruction manual. No words, right? Just simple diagrams that turn the super complex task of building furniture into a series of easy, digestible steps. It's just pure visual genius. So, we've talked about how we see things, but now let's get into how we do things. This next batch of laws is all about making digital experiences feel fast, intuitive, and just completely effortless. Fitts law sounds really technical, but I promise it's not. It just means that bigger things that are closer to us are way easier and faster to click on. Simple as that. This has nothing to do with how things look, it's just physics. Think about your phone. Why are the most used apps always sitting in that dock at the bottom? Because that's where your thumb rests. It's the easiest spot to reach. That's Fitts law right there in the palm of your hand. Let's be honest, we all hate waiting. But what's really fascinating is how little waiting it takes to drive us crazy. The Doherty threshold says that for an interaction to feel instant, it has to respond in under 400 milliseconds. That's less than half a second. So to deal with unavoidable delays, designers use these clever little tricks, like the skeleton loaders you see on LinkedIn, those gray boxes that pop up where content is about to load. It tells you, hey, I'm working on it, which feels a whole lot better than staring at a blank screen. Here's a tough pill for designers to swallow. People spend most of their time on other websites, not yours. And Jacob's Law points out that because of that, they've built up all these expectations. You know the drill, right? A shopping cart goes in the top right corner, error messages are red, a logo in the top left takes you home. Deviating from these known patterns just confuses people. Sometimes, the most brilliant design is the one that feels completely familiar. Okay, let's move on to our third section. We've talked about seeing and doing, now let's get into thinking. Our brains have a finite amount of bandwidth, you know? And this next set of laws is all about designing things in a way that respects that limit and keeps everything as simple as possible. Hick's law is so simple. The more choices you give someone, the longer it takes them to make a decision. Just look at this comparison. On one side, a chaotic mess of options that gives you instant anxiety. On the other,
A clean interface with one, maybe two, clear things to do. By cutting down the number of choices, designers make the whole experience faster and way less stressful. Less really is more.
Quick, I want you to look at this number on the screen. Try to memorize it. I'll give you 3 seconds. Ready? Go. Kinda tough, right? Our brains just aren't designed to process long random strings of information like that. Okay, but what if I showed you the same number, but like this? 849-275-1047. All of a sudden, it's a phone number. It's easy. That is Miller's law. We can only hold about 7 things in our short-term memory at once. So by chunking that long number into 3 smaller, manageable bits, it becomes a piece of cake. This is the exact reason why a complicated online checkout gets broken into little steps: shipping, billing, review. It keeps our brains from short-circuiting. But here's the thing. Some tasks are just complicated, and you can't simplify them away. That's Tesler's law, sometimes called the law of conservation of complexity. Think about booking a flight. You have to choose where you're going, when you're leaving, and who's flying. You can't get rid of that complexity. So the designer's job isn't to magically erase it, but to handle as much of it as possible for the user, like pre-filling your info, to make the whole thing feel way less painful. And that brings us to our last section, and it's a big one: the invisible forces that push us to start something, and maybe more importantly, to actually finish it. These laws are all about tapping directly into our core psychology. You ever noticed how when you get really close to finishing something, you suddenly get a burst of energy to get it done? That's a real thing. It's called the goal gradient effect. The closer we get to our goal, the faster we work to reach it. That progress bar you see during an online checkout is a perfect example. Seeing that you're on step 3 of 4 gives you that little psychological nudge to push through and complete the purchase. And finally, we have the Zeigarnik effect. This is the science behind that nagging feeling you get from an unfinished task. Turns out we remember incomplete things much more clearly than things we've already finished. Online learning sites like Udemy are absolute masters of this. That little progress bar that shows your course is only 40% complete, that creates a little open loop in your brain, a mental itch that you just have to scratch by coming back to finish what you started. So here's the thing. None of these laws really work in isolation. They're not just a list of clever tricks. They all work together, like instruments in an orchestra, to create those seamless, intuitive digital experiences we use every single day. From the color of a button to the speed of a loading screen, it's all part of this hidden symphony of design. So, from now on, when you're using your favorite app or browsing a website, you'll basically have the secret decoder ring. You'll start to see these invisible rules working all around you. So I guess my question for you is this: now that you know what's going on behind the curtain, what's the first thing you're going to notice?